Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Insight Ask Pep Talk Series 4. Today, we have a very interesting guest in our series, Pep Talk Series 4, and also a very experienced person going to talk about a very interesting topic, which is need of the hour. So, future work trend hybrid collaboration. So, thank you, S-Rays, for giving me this opportunity to host this Pep Talk Series 4. So, it's S-Rays is an HR outsourcing organization that helps to build HR departments in startups and corporates and also other organization they also offer an HR certification program. Do visit them in their website srace.com and their social media pages Instagram, Facebook and LinkedIn. And myself Shivakrupa Rajaram, HR specialist. I work on employee engagement and I also love writing on Indic management. Do visit my website as well, www.shivakripa.com. And today we have Vinuta Venkatraman here, who is a very experienced person and almost she has 17 years of work experience with mostly top MNCs like HCL and LMI, FL Smith, L&T, and currently she works as a head HR for Chirate Ventures. Wish you a warm welcome, Vinuta, and we are very happy to host you here in this Pep Talk Series 4. So we've been doing this since the start of this year and we have a very interesting topic about hybrid workforce or hybrid collaboration. And being an HR expert, I would uh, hand over to you so you can introduce about you and we can start off with.
Sure. Thank you so much, Shivakrupa. Well, first of all, thank you to each one of you to have yourself attend this session today, being a Sunday and a day with the family. And if you are doing it, I'm sure that it shows the kind of importance that you give for your own learning. And I'm just hoping that you would have a few things to take away. I will try my best along with Shivakrupa to see how best we can mutually share our thoughts. But I often feel that such sessions really gain the maximum value when we can take in a few inputs and then we try to see how it fits well in our own organizations, right? So I'm one among you here, having gone through probably the journey a little more than a few and little less than many of you, I would say. But I'm happy and glad that my Sunday is well spent, with this 1 hour with you. And hopefully that through your questions, there would be something that would be thought provoking for me as well to go back to my table and brainstorm and see what more we can contribute in the HR fraternity. So, with that, I think Shivakrupa has already given a brief introduction, and I think that's more than sufficient for this session that we had. Ideally, the journey has been into all kind of different sectors and industries, right from IT, being into the learning and development world, and then going into an engineering industry altogether. And then moving into an infrastructure industry where things were completely different to what I had worked earlier, and that leading me to into a more meaningful journey of heading HR for a very different space of a venture capital industry. So I hope that in some way or the other, I get to learn from you, and we have a mutual learning for you as well. So that's about it, Shivakrupa. Probably we can go on to you now.
Yeah. Thank you. All it says that you're very humble for the experience you have. Thanks. I'm happy to have you in this Pep Talk Series 4. So, going to the session, today we're going to discuss about the future work style, which is hybrid environment. So, I think employee engagement is the key. 10 years back, where typically employee engagement as a department started, and now it has moved as a very essential part of an HR department or a HR fraternity, I can say. So there are many companies who focuses on the higher of employee engagement, and there is a designation created for employee engagement, and they are in need of more people. So however we replace with softwares and built-in applications, though we have a virtual office assistant, like many tools have come in, like an Amber or something, where they set up a virtual engagement officer and they try to capture the information. It can never be replaced with the human touch. So that's something different. But still, in this era, I mean, I would say the corona era. So it's different. 2000 since the 2020 March, it is very different. And how do you think we can cover up the employee engagement in this hybrid environment?
So interestingly, employee engagement is not new for employees, right? So we always focus on employee engagement. Being an HR, that is one of the key parameters that we often discuss with business to see whether we are enhancing it to a great extent so that it contributes to the culture of the organization that one works for, right? Now, what is also not new is hybrid, because if you really do the research and see, hybrid as such has been in existential for a very long time. But the concept picked up when there was a disruption in the entire world because of the COVID, and sometimes that such disruptions also make changes happen faster. So while we were predicting the digital phase to come up probably around 2025-26, where the changes would happen, and the companies like Microsoft and Google's were working on them, the point is their readiness to also adapt when such a disruption came in much earlier than expected, and how fast have organizations actually um, adapted to this new way of working, right? So employee engagement as such continues, right? So the challenge that came in is, how do we measure them now? What kind of parameters change when we move into this hybrid workforce model, right? And therefore, that's probably the reason why the term collaboration is extremely important in hybrid, because it is not that we have never collaborated earlier. We often and always used to measure collaboration, but it was measured in a different environment altogether. So when we work in the two kind of modes of environment, which is the off-site and the on-site. So the off-site being the physical way of working, and the on-site being the virtual mode of working. If you look at it, where this is now become, earlier it was a physical workforce model that was working well, and people had and organizations did have gaps and also wanted to enhance their employee engagement score to be the best employer or the best culture that an organization can provide for. Today we have moved into a distributed workforce environment, right? So when in a distributed workforce environment, again, when you look at when a hybrid model can be successful, when you want to measure engagement, could be of based on two parameters. One is on uh, what kind of tweaking I need to do on the employee engagement. And that's where the employee experience concept led into, because it was more to deal with not just engagement, but if they're engaged, what kind of experience do employees gain, right, out of it? Is it aligning to the organizational cultural values, or this is what they want to be seen as ultimately in the market, or how they feel for themselves? Plus very effective collaboration that has to work. Now, that model is what is trying to get evolved right now. So, in such distributed workforce, employee engagement is one of the parameters. So, you can't leave it. So, and when I say engagement, I could probably mean in terms of how flexibly an employee is engaged, or how the employee is engaged from a well being perspective, or how the employee is engaged in terms of measuring his or her impact that he or she is providing to the organization, right? So that has become probably the key parameters in which the organizations are now moving into. Probably we could look at, would organizations start measuring flexibility index? Could it be something on well-being index, which now the organizations are focusing on, or could it be something in measuring impact? The impact index that we are talking about, right? But all these things again require collaboration. Now, all these things can be standalone, but is it leading to what you want as an organization is what one has to question. Right? So, because in disruptive work phase, all these three things can come together. and there can be more parameters. So that's what hybrid workforce is now throwing up as challenge. Now there is no fixed model. Everybody is trying to understand what is the right way to implement a hybrid model. So we are in a phase where hybrid has become kind of a new normal. Operationally, it is available for people, but organizations have now started focusing on what is the right way, right? And therefore there are a lot of discussions happening, forums happening in terms of understanding which industries would require what kind of parameters and how should we really measure them. So that is where now I see more of engagement. So engagement in terms of flexibility, engagement in terms of well-being, and engagement in terms of how impactful they can produce results.
So, if we touch on these things, do you think we can enhance the employee engagement for the associates or our employees?
See, again, all these things, if you look at a hybrid work model, if you really want to define it very well, or to close to being right, it could be, how much are the team members empowered, okay, to take some of the choices or preferences that they would like to work with, okay. Um, uh, and keeping in mind how well it is aligning to what the organization wants, right? Let me give you an example. Now, um, initially when COVID hit, most of us are physical, and then things were in a phase where how agile our organizations going to be in terms of moving in from a very physical workspace to probably a virtual workspace, because none of them knew when we are going to get back. So all the focus was in terms of how do I engage our employees, or how do we engage our employees in such a way that they don't get lost. Correct. All that they wanted was, can I see my employees every day? Or is there a platform? So that's when the technology came in as a great boon, where all of us started to say that whether we are going to have meetings or not, or whether we're going to make it productive or not, let us first see if each of you are doing well, and can we have such kind of meetings, right? When the work was also happening in parallel, and that's when the degree of trust started shifting. When earlier it was little difficult to measure, right? So when people started coming in, then there was a phase when people started getting a little comfortable with the technology, and they understood that there can be a little more that can be done with the same technology, and therefore people started looking at flexibility. Okay, fine. Now that the platform is supporting you and me to see each other and listen to each other, there could be more flexibility in terms of how you want to work and how many hours you want to work. And therefore that paradigm shift happened in terms of accepting that flexibility is okay to measure my engagement. And therefore people started having these experiences index, like when you call it the new things, the one which you said through Infredo, which is Amber, like, which captures, now and then, how are you feeling, what are you doing, and there are different ways of analytics that are associated with it, right? Then we are probably in a phase now where we know what are the benefits, what can the technology do. So we have moved into a phase of saying that while I have all these things, my focus should now be on information security as well. I know I can see and hear this person. I can bring the team together, small teams, large teams, cross functional teams across the globe, domestic, whatever I want, I can bring them all together. But how do I know they are still engaged, right? And that's when the results or the business outcome came in. So the business and organizations were okay to trade off on the organizational results for some time, with the hope that this could lead to a better way of engaging employees, right? So if you look at it, there's always been shifts, and these, whatever the hybrid that we're talking about, is more as a catalyst to enable these shifts happening. In fact, we can say that we were in a phase where organizations which adapted to this change were some of the change making organizations, because it is not easy, but it's all about a lot of communication, acceptance, trust, and accountability that got demonstrated by all the team members, including the top leaders, the leaders who are contributing to the bottom line. I think all of them came together in this model, right? So now again there is a shift in focus where people know that these are workable. So how can I go ahead in measuring better engagement models? And that's where I would say largely today, interestingly, if you look at some of the organizations have started focusing on wellness as an indicator for employee engagement,
True.
right? There was recently added some organization which taking BMI as the parameter to measure, to even do a payout. Now,
True.
why? Because it's related to wellness, right? So earlier, when wellness was seen not as an employee engagement but as a separate focus area, today it is coming under the umbrella of an employee engagement or employee experience, which indirectly can also be measured at the same time. And that's where I think that the healthcare and the technology sectors are also enhancing their scope here, because a lot of things are connected to wellness, a lot of things are connected to flexibility, and indirectly it is connected to the results. So in a way, if we can build some where organizations or the HR folks, where they're working on a lot of OD initiatives, if the focus can shift on these areas of measuring these indexes, where earlier it was only emotional index or a DEI concept, I think then we are moving into a very different phase, and this model can become very, very successful. So it is very, very crucial to understand which are those parameters that an organization wants to incorporate, which is in line with their cultural value, or if they want to change the cultural aspect of the organization, can we adopt such a model so that you know that you can lead there. So I think it's more of it has two sides, and whichever organization is very clear on what they want to do and give a focus on that, I think they get into the boat faster.
True. True that. Makes comprised everything whatever we need to know about the hybrid work environment. So the next challenge is usually what we faced as in calling the employees. They would have been in the work from home environment, right? And they would have been in their native, or at least out of them now. Like I see most of the houses are like empty in the city, and most of them have moved to their town and natives. So though hybrid hybrid environment really helps the organization or helps in connecting with the employees, it also sometimes require the associate, or the employee to be near the base location so they can adopt to this hybrid work environment. So how welcoming people are for that, and because most of them said the work from home option, though it was taking long working hours and it was taking a toll on the mental and physical health, they said they're comfortable because they can at least spend time or save money or whatever. So how do you
Yes,
see this?
absolutely. Absolutely. So that is the advantage of hybrid model, right? With whatever said and done, we cannot deny that it gave better work life balance in some way, right? When there were not even times when people could meet their family members on a day to day basis, I think the work from home enabled it. Now it is all about the spectrum, whether it was too much, too little. It's up to one's way of balancing it, which will take time, right? So that's where the sensitization is happening a lot in these days, where it's just working as well as non-working people, they have now trying to slowly adapt to that change, right? That yeah, there has to be work going on. And the second big advantage is something that we cannot deny, is about the travel cost. Whatever said and done, it's going to hit your profitability, when the operating cost, or the capital that is there. So it is going to be a welcoming note for organizations, and there's nothing wrong in looking at that perspective when we all work on it. And of course, the the other side of it is that, as you said, where people have turn their base into their convenient spaces, I would say, which is
True.
closer to the home time. And then suddenly, we'll also have to look at it in a very fair manner, that none of us knew that COVID is going to come, and there was a disruption. The change helped you to experience something which you would have never experienced at some point of time. And secondly, if the organization and the business requires some amount of given from the employees, I think it's okay to think about it, because it is not that we have never been used to the old ways of working. It's all about getting the best of both worlds, right? And if I think now the employee grievances and the kind of questions that employee business HR partner sometimes, or the employee engagement partner would also start hearing, it is about why should I move closer, right? It's going to be a challenging question now. But why? that's where I think as HR, we also need to get ourselves prepared to answer that. As an HR, I think it's our responsibility to also understand from the business perspective which are the kind of roles that really require constant, frequent travel, which are some of the roles that just require a virtual mode of operation, and for what kind of connects do you need the employees to come back to office, right? I think that level of discussions, though it's hard discussions on the business, I think sometimes we may have to put our foot down to ask and understand these things, so that we would also get to understand what an organization is looking for from the employees, right? And that kind of defines the leadership. And there is a lot of scope if people are not very convinced about people working in their own spaces. There are a lot of organizations now who don't question on where you are, they question on what has happened.
True.
That's the shift that has happened, but this was not the way it was earlier. We have all been through probably some of the phases where the first question over a telephonic conversation would be, so and so, where are you, right? And it's sometimes very discomforting, for us to answer that question when you have it in your mind that what is that you want, correct?
Yes.
So today's thing is, it's that is kind of got faced off, and nobody is asking much of this question of the. So I think that is where it would also lead to, like, sometime kind of a open communication in explaining to people why we would want employees to be near the office location, and why sometimes you don't need to, may help, because these are questions that would be in their mind, because this is a question they would want to know, right? Why not I work from my work hometown? Why not I work from, right? If this question is answered ahead, it's more to do with emotional intelligence, right? You're trying to understand what kind of questions may come out and be prepared for it. And I think from my point of view, I'm not sure if I'm right or wrong. Again, it depends on the industry and firm. It probably would work out once those kind of clarity is given to the employees. So, so I think it's more to do with a deliberation that has to be taking place. Yeah.
So we've been recently running the survey for inside our organization, and there was a request like the petrol costs are hiking up a lot, so why don't we continue work from home for some time? And that's one thing. And I also see none of the interviews are happening face to face anymore. It's all virtual. So definitely, this COVID has brought in a great shift for good or bad, I would say.
Yes. See, again, true. That is something that's where it brings new challenges, and that's where there's more work to do.
True, true. Until things are in adverse, we never adapt to change. Sometimes we need these
Yes.
as well. So, like, okay, we were discussing about the hybrid. I mean, what is it, and the good and the pros and cons of it, I would say.
Yeah.
So, coming to the workforce now, if you take a organization which has been there for 10, 15 years, or in the startups, we always have a cloud of different generations working in. There are, like, Gen Y, Gen Z is also there. There are organizations which is there for 50, 60 years where we have XYZ also. So, how do you think we can handle, or how do these different Gen people are adopting to the workplace? So, as far as I've observed, Gen Y is always, maybe Gen Z also, the early Gen Z also, they are generally accommodative, adjustable, and they work from, I mean, they're okay with work from home. Whereas if you see the Gen X, or Gen X especially, they have never been into work from home model as such. So, how do you see this, and how do you think we can handle
Right.
the different?
Interesting question, and important too. If you look at the Gen X, they were always keenness on when will that get adopted. If you really look back 10 years ago, this was the thing to be like in a very progressive organization, if you're called, right? So we often used to compare organizations for this particular term, but today it is available as a platter, so it becomes very normal, right, for people, right? So but when you look at it, I would say that yes, as you said, the younger generations are much more comfortable in adapting to this style of work, because their way of looking at life and the purpose is probably changing with the way the older generation was looking at. Older generation, if you look at it, probably have this challenge of having a bias towards the hybrid work culture and some kind of resistance to it, because it's very normal thing that we all know as the hindsight, the drawback of an experience that adds on to an employee is also the narrowness the narrow-mindedness in terms of change, right? That kind of tags along. The more the experience, the resistance to change is a little higher, right? But there are different leaders. That's where the differentiated leaders are. Okay. So if you look at it, but with what we are seeing for 2 years, I think there has been a paradigm shift in the way the hybrid workforce is being accepted. What people may be looking for is comfort zones. Now that people have seen that things work in this way as well, there's always a bit of dragginess in terms of why should I go back to another form of change, right? In what way is it going to help me, right? So I would say it, while it has both the generations have their pluses and minuses in this, because and it's a lot to do with how fast we can accept those differences. There are going to be gaps, not address each and everyone's criteria. That with the hybrid work model, which they claim, as research says, is that you cannot create an adventure bucket. Extremely difficult. Okay, then probably you may not be able to measure the impact. It's been suggested is that you have a spectrum, right? And then it's becoming more and more crucial to communicate to hello.
Yeah. So I was not able to see the video.
In between. Audible now?
Yeah, there was a network issue, I suppose.
Audible now? I don't know. I just lost out in between.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah. So so that difference is going to be existing, as I said, in the generation gap. Okay, but uh, as per how we see as how this hybrid culture has been adopted, because around close to 93%, as per research, people have organizations in some form or the other have moved into the hybrid model. Okay, there is always this 10% of the industries, like for example, the previous organization I worked, infrastructure. Now, it is very difficult in certain business scenarios to completely move into hybrid, because the nature of the work and the business will demand a physical workforce. All right. And the effort to do the change management there might not be a viable option and not be even profitable in such cases to go into a virtual or a fully virtual or a hybrid mode. Okay, so such kind of organizations have started adopting, identifying roles which are probably in the virtual mode that can they can operate. But there are people and employees, especially frontline workers, who enjoy working when they come in the physical form of work, because that's how they can do what it has changed is in terms of technology and AI, which is enabling these workforce to probably reskill or stay up to date in the market, so that you can't continue to do the old way of only work where you know one particular skill and that has worked for a long time, including industries like infrastructure. But how can I adopt technology to start working in better platforms? Now that applies for both the generations. All right. So I lost you, Shivapriya, but I'm not sure whether others can hear. Um, uh, yeah, I lost
Yeah,
you, Shivapriya.
yeah.
Yeah,
I'm facing some network issues, so yeah.
sure. So that's what I would say. So yes, there are challenges with the generation thing, but I think the last 2 years have actually, either by force or by choice, people have started experiencing it. And when I spoke to a lot of them on how they adopted to it, I did hear that over a period of time, people started seeing results. People saw increase in productivity. The one factor which probably people are more concerned is about well-being, that is what I was telling, that is also an important factor when you consider employee engagement.
Okay. So, do you think there is any innovative or a sustainable method or a framework to implement the hybrid work process?
So I had this answer in my previous thing where I was saying that it lot of it depends on the industry that we are in. Okay, how futuristic we want to be as an organization or a firm. Would you want to use this as a branding, because there's a lot of things which goes in employer branding, and do you want to use it as an employee experience index, right? So there is, as I said, the organizations have adopted this work model, but whether hybrid collaboration is happening is what people are now trying to see. Hybrid is working, but whether is it really bringing in a lot of collaboration is something that has to be measured over a period of time. There are
True.
no fixed answers as of now, and that's why, as I said, there is a lot of scope in this area where organizations are trying to find out and trying to be the first in the race to find out what is the right way. So there is something open for people, especially in our HR field, students who are probably aiming to do well in HR, in terms of getting deeper into this area. Because to give a very simple understanding, is when we talk about all these measurements earlier, when we were working in the physical form, most of the time when we look at it, we used to measure collaboration. That is very common word earlier, right? We bring the team together, we bring it to an offsite,
Yeah.
we run workshops and team lunches. Why? Because it's a chance for them to meet the team and collaborate. But what exactly happened, that's a different measurement for each organization and what they want to do. Then, so in a way, we are talking about hybrid, which means this platform is going to give opportunity to be physical for some time. That the organization will decide on how many days they want to go in an off-site mode, and how many days they want to adopt an on-site model. But what do we want? Well, how can we channelize and measure or make it very effective, or as you say, sustainable? Could be, I'm not saying or claiming it is, but could, or we can try experimenting, is to see how can we do some of the projects which require collaboration, right? Can it be done when we working in the physical workplace? Can we focus on some of the idea generation projects when we meet people in office, because it requires a couple of minds which can do a lot of brainstorming. And what has happened with the hybrid workforce, where we used to face challenge in a pure physical form of working, is space and time for you to do deep focus on certain subjects. That was a challenge at least we were facing when we had only physical work. Do I have my time and space? So that's when you used to wait for cubicles to be available, discussion rooms to be available, conference room, because you want to put your mind into building something what you want to deliver. But today you have that advantage in a hybrid model, where if an employee tries to very smartly plan this on what are some of the areas that I would work when I go to office, or as a team or as a leader, if they can come out with a plan instead of only prioritizing on task A, B, C, D, E that has to be done for a week. Instead, if the team can go into a model where they can think of what are some of the collaborative projects that we would be discussing when we meet in office, what are some of the innovative or creative projects that we would be discussing, and go back to your workplace, which is probably your home or the space that you have defined for self, and spend some time on deep thinking on certain areas that you have discussed in office, and then come bring it back to the table, right? So these are forms in which it can be a smart way of working, and these are measurable. If you look at it, these can be measured, and you can look at how the productivity is often being linked to these things.
Awesome. So, productivity in a hybrid work environment, do you think it is moving or scaling towards a positive side?
I think if you ask a lot of people, that some of the basic questions I'm very curious to ask about few of them when I meet is, um, how do you think? I asked two of them, the two stakeholders. One is a person who doesn't have a team, and one who's leading a team. Now there are two perspectives to it, right? So when you ask that interesting question a couple of times, what I've heard is that uh, it's like, I think I work more, and I work more than what I used to work. Okay. Now, whether it is productive or not, again, that depends on the results that is being faced. Most of the organizations, I'm sure, we are all in a world where there are a lot of data, information, analytics available, and people, organizations who are moving into hybrid model know that the productivity is higher when compared to what the physical space was giving. Now we are doing only a comparative analysis. We are not saying that is better or this is better, but we are saying comparatively for the same hours of work, has it been better? Yes, there have been results which have said that the productivity is an indicator, and we have seen productivity being in the positive side. So in a way, people want to adopt it. From a leadership perspective, people want to adopt it. Now what is being compromised is where the wellness comes, the well-being, the mental well-being. So there are a lot of people who claim that earlier I used to work only for 9 to 10 hours, and now today it's around 12 to 14 hours I work. Now I would put that back to the question to a leader on why is that happening, right? There, this is a world of freedom and opportunities, right? Now if this is what employees express, and you know as an employee that this is going to come in your way, I think two basic questions and a leader should be communicative and open is about what kind of working style would be suitable, what is his or her working style as a leader, right? And then have debates and deliberations over what would be the best style to work with. And two, what kind of support, or what kind of challenges are their own team members face when they work in a hybrid work model or in a physical work model. So that is how the communication topics are also changing between a leader and the team. So today, these kind of questions, earlier these were not the kind of questions that were asked or even discussed much, right? It was understood that we are coming to an office, this is a common workspace, this is a building in which we work, and this is what we need to deliver. But today that is not, because if this these questions can be addressed, then the factor, or the element that would lead to an unsuccessful non-successful hybrid work model will decrease, correct? Otherwise it's going to increase the gap. Right. So I would say there are a lot of things to do with the leaders as well, especially when you hold a team. It is just, you can't just expect people to just slog for hours and hours. There might be today you have the freedom to switch off the camera. You can't force people to say no, you have to come on camera and things like that. So that is where some of the employees are facing challenges on. Is there a factor of trust? So now you can see how the trust factor has shifted in a hybrid work model. Earlier, the trust was very differently defined in a physical workplace model. What was trust itself was a big question and a big thing to answer. And you have workshops, you run seminars and things like that. But today, it is all about why don't you trust me? So that's why we also have to depend on technology somewhere. And if you look at it, as per statistics. That's why a lot of technology companies are working on building, more secured information platform. Information security is becoming a key to make this hybrid model very, very successful.
So when you were telling me this, in my organization, most of the leadership, they come to office for 2 days where they have all the meetings. They take away the inputs out of the meeting, and they have all the other 3 days to work on it completely, so that they don't get interrupted for meeting or something. So the work is also productive. Is what I heard from one of the leader when we had a casual conversation. And your
That's
answer reminds me of that conversation which I had. So anyway, so how do you think we can develop a talent in hybrid work environment, or
um,
manage the talent also? I would say develop and manage the talents in the hybrid working.
so talent is managing by themselves today. That's the change. Okay, so that is how the change has happened now. So you don't really manage them, you only try to empower them, right? So when we talk about uh, managing is done, the technology is managing it. So we have to adopt technology to manage that. And of course, the rest of it, when you meet physical, it moves into collaboration. That's why I meant the topic of hybrid collaboration, because um, um, no, there is not much in scope for managing alone, right? So how do I collaborate with my team when they come in person, or how do I collaborate with them when they are online? And a lot of work or research on collaboration equity is something that has come up as a new thing, because collaboration equity, in the sense, what do we really mean? Earlier, when we say collaboration, then we say we're bringing all of them together into one place, right? And we make them work together with their minds. There is collaboration of mind, there is collaboration of ideas, and there is collaboration of thought and actions, right? And all will be, there's some common platform for it. Today, when we talk of collaboration equity in a virtual or a hybrid model, it is about how do I, with agility, how do I shift when I come to office, and how do I shift when I go back to a space where I'm working virtually. Correct. So in terms of talent development, even for a talent, it is not easy. It's quite confusing, right? Nobody has some very solid answers in it. But the best way to get that answer is from the talent only, because now we are in the phase of a cycle where you are in the first phase of, I need to be aware of what the employees need, because it's a new thing now. It's a new way of working. So do what do I need as an employee when I'm going to keep shifting between this hybrid model and the physical model, right? The virtual model and the physical model, right? So the capturing of the needs are going to be now changing, right? So some of the areas, if you look at capturing the needs, especially when you want to develop the talent, is uh, in terms of learning. If I'm going to build a model for them to develop and grow as a future leader in the organization, how flexible is the model going to be, is a question that is being asked. So you'll have to look at, can this model work in both a physical mode and a virtual mode? Then people are looking forward to it. Okay. Then how talking about psychological safety, in terms of psychological safety, how psychologically safe am I going to be in this environment for me to develop and grow in this environment, is another thing, right? And how is this platform going to minimize biases when it comes to especially proximity biases? That's a big problem that people are facing, as you said in the very initial stage. How do we break that bias? It's actually a bias which people have, like proximity bias, in terms of, if I am working in office or closer to office, am I going to be seen differently and valued differently to a person who is going to be away from thing? Is a bias, as I said, could be part of the leadership as well, or the people who have been in the earlier generations, because earlier, the measurement of the productivity or being smart or being able to deliver was merely seen and observed day in and day out, or heard from people who saw them day in and day out. But today you'll have to depend on the technology. You have to depend on some of the analysis that we are doing. So development also is going to be evolving over a period of time, and I think it is going to be more customized. That's what people are looking for. A lot of scope for a lot of organizations to build customizable products, especially in the field of development and employee experience. I think that, and frequency in which we are going to collect this feedback is going to make the difference. So earlier, what we used to do as what employee needs are, learning needs are, what we used to do 1 year over the line and 2 years over a period of 2 years. Maybe now we'll have to do it once in 3 months to see what people need at that point of time. Quickly plan, roll out something, and look at the effectiveness. Take feedback, see whether it is sustainable. If it is, continue. If it is not, share, go to plan B as fast as possible, and that's where agility comes in. So talent development is purely going to probably be dependent upon what it is going to be employee driven, more than just top driven, as we earlier used to have. I know what my employees want is going to continue, but it has to be now validated with what really employees want, and then align these two in such a way that the best of the two worlds are catering to their development. So we'll have to, this is going to be an interesting phase for any HR or a business leader, because it's going to be a lot of trial and errors that are going to happen in the market, and probably new ways and gamifications and things where it was very difficult to adapt in the earlier ages are probably going to become the new normal for engaging people and developing them.
So, so we have been discussing about tools in and technologies that has to come into place for a collaborative hybrid work environment. So can you just name or can you just enlighten us what are the very important tools or that we should have to run this hybrid model successfully?
More than tools, I think most of us have the tools today, that to be very frank with, whether it is today you and I and all of them are in a a virtual platform doing it. Correct, we've saved almost 2 hours of time and travel, your effort in terms of facing the heat of the complete thing. So in a way, I think technology is actually developed faster than what we thought. So there are a lot of things already available. It's whether have found time to explore them itself is a big question, right? Today the Cisco's and many the Google the Google workspace that is coming up very strongly, and they are kind of marketing it really well as such. If you look at it, they're much ahead in terms of looking at what we want. Okay, and I think it's not just about some the different technologies. I think we'll need to choose what works for one organization. How much of it do you need? If you don't have anything, of course we have lost the bus and we have missed the bus, and you can't complain. But I think there are basic tools that are more than sufficient today, like what we are using in different platforms, which are enabling the work from home or work from anywhere option that we call it, right? So that is one tool. The most important thing that is happening, which is as per the survey research recently done, is only 20% of the companies have actually adopted cloud-based data storage. So,
Yeah.
which means there are a lot of work that is happening by cloud-based services companies, which are going to enable people to access secure information anywhere, anytime, right? So that is something organizations and firm can look up and keep their eyes and ears open into understanding what kind of cloud technologies that the companies can adopt, so that the data doesn't get stopped at one point of with a single person, and at the same time you can control on what kind of information is to be shared with what kind of employee, the different roles of employees, which is making it much seamless. So whether you are at home or whether you're at office, you will be working on the same platform. Most important thing is to see that we don't get burnt out with too much of cognitive information. That is also being nowadays seen as a big challenge in terms of cognitive abundance, which is creating a lot of burnout, especially when you have more time, you go deeper and deeper, and that's the other side of it when you're working this way. So I think technology is quite supportive, and there are a lot more coming up, if I would say, because when you look at it from having now stepped into a VC environment, we get to understand about lots and lots of new age tech companies which are coming up, and the kind of technology that these entrepreneurs are thinking of is something that we wouldn't have dreamt of. Okay, it's a matter of time when the clock is going to start ticking for them, and the kind of progress that they're going to make in exposing these kind of tools into the market. And I think I think we have more in scope to watch out for in terms of the technology space. We've already started that race, so I think we should just make the best use of it without um, losing out on the employee, the human touch. I don't think that will completely vanish, according to me, for now, unless there is something really, disruptive that may come, which even you or I may not be able to comment for now. But I think HR in the tech space is going to have a lot of scope and a lot of interesting things that we could do. Yeah.
True. So to add up, with now HR is all about data mindset and collaborative mindset, because most of the companies now, it's been a trend for now that the international banks has been hiring mostly HRs for the data centric HR or HRs for the data analysis role. But now that has been a trend in the most of the IT MNC organizations as well. Everywhere we need an analytics, data driven insights, high level call
Pe-
outs,
People
even
analytics
yeah,
specialist.
yes, even high level call outs, even when we run a simple employee engagement or even a survey for that matter. So yes,
True.
definitely that's bringing in a big shift,
But
as you
as of
said.
now, at least we need somebody to interpret it. So upskilling in that area with help. And I think there are areas like leadership, there are areas like culture, which organizational development, where we'll have to start looking at it as a companion for an HR. It's more of earlier we were deprived of it, and today we have it. So make the best use of it, and a lot of scope for bringing a lot of visibility for oneself through information and data.
True, true. Data and digital is the new oil, so we cannot deny now. So there is a question. So whether hybrid models reduces attrition. So one of the participant, Jnana Shekharan Ganapati, has this question. So whether hybrid model reduces attrition or not. The biggest challenge is even in the bigger companies, even after paying well, increasing the performance bonus, or giving a good hike after the appraisal, there is at least averagely 30% attrition. Reducing something to the 1 or 2% become a bigger challenge. So do you think this hybrid model reduces attrition?
It's been 2 years now, and we are still going forward. See, we don't see, it also depends on the organization as such. See, it is all about what kind of factors you include in that hybrid. That's why, as Shivakripa was saying, the employee experience matters. uh, just because one company has a hybrid model and they claim that we are now hybrid, uh, doesn't mean that an employee stickiness will be higher. It all depends on what kind of framework you do inside that hybrid model, and how fast you're adopting, and how sincerely an organization is adopting. Okay. Again, there are a lot of other factors like the immediate supervisor. See, you can have an hybrid model, but a manager not supporting it. It's as equivalent as a failure it can be. Okay. So again, these are things that you cannot say that it will reduce or it will increase. I think resignation or attrition is something that goes as per the market. There's a trend, and we've always seen highs and lows of attrition happening, and certain attrition is good. So we'll need to figure out what kind of attrition is happening. If it is a cultural misfit that has happened in an organization and such kind of employees are leaving, I would say rather encourage it, because for your new hybrid model, you need culturally fit employees to work to make it successful, because that model defines it and requires it. But if there are other reasons, it really doesn't matter if it is a hybrid workplace or a physical workplace, the attrition will continue to happen, or it will have a very healthy attrition. Okay, so my answer would be that I think you cannot have a straight answer to, or a correlation, at least till now I have not. At least I would like to learn if, if somebody has an answer to it. But we are all hoping that we have positive attrition, and we don't want, any of the organizations or leaders wouldn't want to encourage attrition as such. So we are hoping that this new model will bring out new ways of working and engagement and employee experience, which will have a higher stickiness to the firm which an employee is working.
So I know this. The next question would be like, comparing an apple and an orange, but still. So the on space work environment versus hybrid environment. So can you just differentiate and give some glimpse on it?
Earlier, it is in the kind of work that we are going to do in both these workspaces. That's the major differentiator, right? And today, people require more, are questioning. If you look at the millennial generation, it's more about purpose, correct? If my purpose is achieved, or if I get what I want, how does it matter how I do it, right? So there is a lot of flux happening in this area as such. So for them, if communication or insights have to be thrown, then there is a lot of thing that has to be spoken on, why you want to come to to office and work. What's in it for me, and how will it enhance productivity is a question that we need to think of. We'll have to brainstorm in terms of looking at what are the benefits. Okay, one of the areas where we could always define and debate is meeting fatigues. Online meeting fatigues have become a terrible thing that people are not able to manage. Okay, people are sick and tired of even looking at empty screens, or pictureless meetings, voiceovers. So that is something that people can, be away from if they're working. But yeah, but it's always good to define what you want to come to work for. Even when you're coming to work to an office, and when you look at it from the virtual way, the pure virtual way when you're working, I think in a way it has led to a better well-being in terms of mental health also. While there are a lot of topics that are going on that mental health is supposed to be a factor that is to be considered, which is true, there is a set of population which has really benefited from working from home, because um, um, wherein they could incorporate exercises, they could incorporate healthy eating. There are tech health companies which have gone up in their market space really high, like Eat Fit, or an app of called Healthify Me, and all these things are new, right? And people are willing to try. And I'm talking about generations. Talking about any leader who has an abundance mindset, or is very, very keen on building a good leadership style, uh, adapts to this change also over a period of time. And that's what we have seen. So we have seen them as ambassadors, we've seen them as inspirations as well. So I think, as I said earlier, one is, the purpose of the real meaning of collaboration when you come to office, what kind of projects, collaborative projects you choose. Then in terms of brainstorming projects or any creative projects that you want to have a one-on-one discussion with your managers, that if you really want to have in office. And the other side is about go back to your drawing board at your home, come back with more solutions when you get back to office. So I think that's a kind of a chain that happens. You have your space, there's a lot of freedom that you want to do in that, and there's a lot of opportunities also. So hybrid collaboration is all about uh, a mix of freedom and opportunity.
Okay. Okay. So, if personally, what is that you would choose? Going to office, or the complete work from home, or hybrid? So, what's your choice personally?
So I would go along with what a firm would need. I'm not saying the firm decides it, but what a firm would need. And how do you define what a firm would need is based on how successful and sustainable that firm or an organization can, live up to, right? So in
Okay.
that case, I think, personally, we are adopting a hybrid workforce, especially in an industry which was completely physical, because this is all about venture capital, is all about meeting people, networking with people, building new relationships, convincing and influencing people for capital and ideas. So an industry which was completely dependent on a physical mode has now is slowly trying to adopt a hybrid mode. I'm not saying there are no teething issues. In fact, I'm seeing a lot of them. But the good thing is about the acceptance of it. If I want to be in the race, I better try to adopt and see. If we fail, there's always a way to go back, right? But that is not what the employees are going to do. They are willing to adopt to this because the majority of them are the generation. We have a mix of generation. In fact, Sharade has extremes of generation. We have the millennials working, and we have the leadership also with, who are have seen the world and have got induced into physical form of working and meeting people. So we are trying our best to have the best of both worlds. So that is our vision. The vision is, as a firm, is that we would focus on bringing the best of both worlds to ensure that there is maximum productivity. There is a lot of focus on employee well-being for us, and thereby leading to a very good employee experience, which will help us retain our talent, especially in a space where it's very difficult to retain, right? So I think that's my personal view. I have been in both, so uh, for me, I'm quite used to adapting. So I will explore on both these things, and I'm now in a phase where I'm exploring the hybrid.
So I have the final question. So,
Sure.
how do you think the hybrid environment is positively impacting the organizations? So, could be gist of what you've been telling, but you know, how
Yeah.
do you think it is impacting positively?
Absolutely. See, the see if you look at the industrial thing, it's an evolution, right from the time we started with machines and then factories, and then we moved into the IT space, and then there was a bubble burst, and then we moved into a very different new age. Now it's the new age tech phase, right? See, I think the success of it is more to do with clarity on what I want as an organization. That's extremely very, it's coming out very prominent for any of the organization. You go read the success stories of any of the organizations who have started implementing the hybrid model. The core doesn't change. It's again leadership. It's again people. It's again culture. Okay, and all these three things are interlinked. All right. It is all about who needs what, okay, and respecting each other's need, but in such a way that you're still aligning to what the organization wants. So it is not, so hiring is also changed in that perspective. No, we spend a lot of time in talking about what we mean by our hybrid culture, what we mean as a firm as a hybrid collaboration. So there are different definitions that are coming out with a common concept. So hybrid, as I said, is very common. It's simple to understand. It gives flexibility to work from anywhere, but it still has certain rules because that's how the organization can function and sustain. If that is not there, we may lose out, neither addressing the employees or the organization seeing profitability, right? When we need both. So it's a wonderful time now to actually for organizations, their leaders, HR, to sit and define what we really want as a hybrid model. What are the core parameters that we are going to state when in our policy when we are defining what hybrid means, and then thereby defining what employee experience actually means in a hybrid workforce. And I think that will be a differentiator with different organizations when people want to choose, right? Hybrid is probably going to be a common thing available, but what in hybrid and how hybrid it is, and what are the benefits and experiences an employee is going to gain out of choosing this without losing scope and focus on the organizational vision, I think will define the new hybrid and differentiated hybrid models for different organizations.
So everything should be goal driven, and we have a structure or the policy or a pattern to run it so it becomes successful. So, well, most of the, this typically happens in the organization. So, I was just connecting with my friend, and she said, like, they said I can work any 2 days in a week from the office, and 3 days from home is what they have derived me. So whenever I wanted to go and meet my teammates out, I wanted to connect with them. None of them turn up. And she was telling, so I had planned my work for these things, and I had to collect these data, but then, the concerned person was not there. And she was telling it would be better if we define out, this team, whichever does a lot of collaborative working, will be present in the office on, these days, so that it will be easy and they can have the deep focus on the other 3 days. So, that's something, the conversation we were just having last night, and
Which is
we
very
were.
true. Very true, Shivkupa, because that's what we are now trying to figure out. So that's where the mind is now working on to not just bringing in people together, the purpose of bringing in people together, which kind of teams to be brought together, when should they come together, and that is now the new challenge of a manager. Is not to see whether they are just aligned and have clarity in their goals, but to define and see which are the roles which require collaboration in a hybrid model, and when and how they can enable and empower that. So that is becoming a new leadership challenge that we are looking at, and so that is also empathy in the new age that we are talking about, because it is with virtual mode of operation, people really don't know how people are and in what state they are. So that's where I told about equity to be brought in these things, which is whether it's collaboration equity, representation equity, or participation equity. That is something what today leaders will also have to think about, and they can be measured as well.
So we had a lot of information this last 1 hour. So let me just check with the participant whether they have any questions.
Sure.
So participant, if you have any questions, you can type them in the chat box. So there's one question. So when we were actually discussing about the various generation working at office, so like how the resistance to change and adopt to hybrid work culture by Gen X can be tackled.
Just put them more and more into it. After some time, you will get used to it. That is how sometimes change happens,
True,
right?
true.
Whoever fits in that culture exists. Whoever doesn't fit into the
Yes.
culture may make their way to an industry, probably they can, because you, that's why I said it cannot be so customized that you can push it on them. So somewhere the HR acts as a moderator in terms of looking at where the balance has to be. If there is a force in terms of saying I want my people all the time here whenever I'm there, that culture may not work henceforth, because people can prove that results can be generated even otherwise, and they have seen it and we have done it, right? Now it is all about comfort, and I think the peer pressure of other organizations also will drive those kind of things, and I think this is unavoidable. So it is either adopt or adapt. Both will have to do.
True, true that. True that. So that was a very informative session, Vanita. So you are covering up on collaborative mindset, which is the need of the art. So uh, recent research says that data mindset, digital mindset, collaborative mindset is the three important things that would be driving the future workforce, and without this it is not possible. So as it covers the hybrid work culture also, so and you were also talking about the measuring the impact. Gone are those days where we just measure based on how they feel at office and all that. Now the work life
Yes.
balance has become a very important thing, where the wellness as well as the physical and mental index, and the participation in the team, because when
Yes.
being an employee engagement HR, I feel that most of the people who've been joined the tribe in the last 2 years feel they don't they're not part of the business unit at all. So what they know is only within the team. So the participation is something really we need to work on. So you gave a beautiful insight on that as well, and the wellness and as well as the willingness. So how do we bring in that mindset, and how do we measure the employees on that, and equity. So everywhere the equity should be in place. So you know uh, that's something that's very important. And you also brought in the elements of the employee experience, employee engagement, how it is connected to the hybrid work environment, and also you touch base on the culture of an organization, how it impacts the workplace and workforce as such. So it was very interesting. Thanks for the wonderful session, Vinita. I really enjoyed it, and I could
Thank
connect
you so
every aspects of what you told, and it was really narrative. And I think the budding HRs and as well as the experienced HR folks would definitely able to connect at different point of time. So it was a pleasure to have you in this session, Vinita. It's my pleasure.
Same here, Shivakrupa. And thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. As we are all virtual, I can only see Shivakrupa, but I'm absolutely okay because I think we have learned to visualize a lot more these days than what only a screen could give. So thank you so much for the opportunity and the questions that you have asked.
Thank you,
Have a
Vinita.
wonderful evening.
Have a wonderful evening. Thank you, participants, for joining in for this Pep Talk Series 4. And we will soon meet you with an Pep Talk Series 5 session with another HR expert the next month. And, you can always log into sprace.com. Please watch this YouTube after it gets loaded in the SRace page in the YouTube channel. And then do like SRace social media pages, which is on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Thank you all, and thank you once again, Vinutta, and thank you, SRace, for giving me this opportunity again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good day. Bye bye.
Good day.